Are you poor because you don't have money? Or you don't have money because you're poor? This is the same question we always ask. It's the egg and the chicken question. What comes first? Let's look at poverty. Number one, let's look at poverty not as lack of money, but let's look at poverty as a way of thinking. Like, for you to not to have money, there has to be a script. There has to be a blueprint that you come from. There has to be a way of thinking, a way that you've inherited, the way that your environment and your early caregivers have told you and taught you that that's what money is. Then automatically it means that poverty or lack of money, you don't have money because you're poor, or are you poor because you don't have money? Then the answer to that becomes very easy, is because you are poor because you don't have money, because poverty is a way of thinking. Now, how do we change how we think? Now, to change how we think, look at your life and you'll find your introduction to money, like any of us, there is a script that you inherited from your parents or whoever brought you up. What they said about money, how they behaved around money, how they handled money, the interaction between your parents or your elders or the people around you when it comes to money, that becomes your script. That becomes the way that you live your life. Now, before you can make money in this world, which, if you look at it, it becomes not the cause but the effect. Money becomes an effect of how you think and how you interact with the world around you. So, what is your script? Do you have an abundance mindset or you have a poverty mindset? And this is something that I need you to ask yourself, and it's something that you have to question. Because until you change how you think, it doesn't really matter. You keep on reliving the same script and you keep on doing the things that you've been doing consistently, you struggle with money. Now, if you look at us, as advanced as we are as a people, you'll find technology is there, education is there, we have an abundance of knowledge. Knowledge nowadays has been democratized. You know, it's no longer a case of you coming from a poor background that because you don't have money, you can't afford good schools. Right now, that is totally different. I can go online now and be a student to some of the best professors from places like Harvard, Oxford, and all those things. So it's no longer lack of knowledge that has become the biggest problem. It is for us to change how we think. So number one here is, first thing is you have to change your money script. And what I mean by this is it's a mindset. You have to change how you think. Then the second thing here is we've been taught to work hard, and this I call it leverage versus effort. If you come from a working class background, you'll see that the definition of manhood, or what defines your father or mother, is how hard they used to work. I remember my mother used to be up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and she was always the last person to go to bed around 11, 12 when all of us are asleep. And at no single time did I ever see my mother taking a breather. She was constantly in the kitchen cooking, constantly on the farm digging, constantly going to the river to fetch water, constantly looking after the animals. My mother was constantly busy. And on the other side, I remember my father always leaving the house at 5 in the morning when the cock crows early in the morning and they have to go to the farm. The other fathers that were working for other people, they were consistently working under the hot sun. And the time we see them is around 5, 6 in the evening when they come and they sit, they eat a meal and they relax. Men had more time to themselves than the women. I've never seen my mother rest. Now, if hard work alone makes you rich, then my mother is supposed to be one of the richest women alive. But I can guarantee you The only time my mother ever wore something that is new, that has never been bought from a second-hand shop, or it has not been handed down from one of our well-off relatives, it's the time that I started working and I had to treat my mother to that. And this is one of the things that we have to change. The rich people around us don't work longer than us. They don't work harder than us. And even for those that work harder and for those that work longer, they're not working harder and longer and that's why they're rich. They're working harder and longer because they're already rich. They're working harder and longer to maintain their wealth. So I don't want us to miss or confuse causation here with causation here and results. There's so many people that work hard. And if you want to change your financial statement, if you want to change your financial position, if you want to change the size of your bank account, if you want to take away any kind of financial stress, one of the words that you have to change here, you have to disqualify this and you have to increase leverage. Rich people have leverage, which means that they're consistently making money devoid of time and energy. Working harder, which is effort, an effort-based economy, was easier during our father's time because things were cheaper and life was cheaper. In the sense, I remember when we went to school, if you 3 or 4 children from the same household, the firstborn paid full school fees and the other ones paid half. Nowadays, if you go to any of the private schools here, whether you 10 from the same house, if the fees is 150,000 a year, each of you has to pay 150,000 a year. So that effort-based economy was easier for our parents to survive in and make money. If you look at us, we're making more money, but we are poorer than our parents because we're still focusing more on effort rather than leverage. Rich people use leverage, and leverage comes in different forms. First leverage here that rich people use is time. They're not paid according to how much time they put in. They use other people's time, and that's where people get wages. Number 2 is energy. They use other people's energy. Number 3 is knowledge. Number 4, they use technology. And of course, the 5th one here for them, they use money. The more money they have, you can use money to buy other people's time. You can use money to buy other people's energy. You can use money to buy the best technology. You can use money to have access to the best knowledge. So if we're going to be rich, that is one thing that we have to change. And then the third thing that needs to change here is, I call this the deception of visibility. The deception of visibility. What do I mean by this? Society encourages poor people to be visible in their suffering and announcing their intentions. Most poor people take poverty and complaining about their poverty as a badge of honor, saying how hard they work and how very little they make. This becomes, and you'll see it, you won't see rich people out there protesting. You won't see rich people complaining how hard life is and that somebody else has to do something for them to be able to change their life. Rich people understand that you cannot change systems because you don't like it. You can only change systems. Systems can only collapse because they've stopped working. A system serves someone. But our society teaches us, when you listen to poor people, one says how he hasn't eaten a meal in the last 3 days. The other ones want to counter by telling them, today, for the last 1 week, I've been walking to work. I walk to work. I walk 10 kilometers. I eat 1 meal in 3 days. It becomes a badge of honor. Rich people don't do that. Rich people move quietly. Rich people are calculating. Rich people make plans. Rich people work for control. Rich people keep whatever they're working on secret until it's materialized. The more poor you are, the more you tell people about your plans. Go to any social media, go to Facebook, go to any of the meta platforms and skim online, and you'll see how many poor people are talking about their new plans, what they're going to do, how great this year is going to be, how big plans they are. But if you go back and check, you'll find for the last 5, 7, 6, 7, 10 years, they've been talking about the same thing, but nothing has really changed. Because the more you talk about what you're going to do, science is proven that you keep on getting a dopamine hit. You feel better for talking about what you're going to do rather than feeling that dopamine hit from doing whatever you are supposed to do. Go to any social media, to any of your rich friends, people that have made it in life. Go through their page. Let's see if they're telling you about what their future plans are. None of them are talking about those. This is something that society is engineered. It's become a public crucifixion for yourself to talk about how hard life is. And you think by doing that, people will feel sorry for you. And it makes you feel better, but it does not change your state at all. Okay? Now, the other thing here is what I call it moral inversion. Society has made it frames poverty as noble. It frames wealth as being suspicious. Society makes us, and you'll see this a lot if you look at especially Christianity. Christianity tells you that the poor, the happy, the blessed are those that are poor here, and they'll be rewarded in heaven. So we take poverty as a precaution, as a precursor. It's something that we need to be, something that we need to be proud of for us to be accepted by Jesus. Christianity sells Jesus as being a poor person. But if you go into the scriptures, if you go into the Bible, you'll find Jesus wasn't a poor person. There's so many factors in the Bible that show that Jesus was a very wealthy man. And we're not talking about that here, but if we look at it, number one, we are told that Jesus' father, when he left Jerusalem and he was taking his family, we are told that he ended up giving birth. Mary ended up giving birth in a manger. But we forget the context here. The context is that they ended up in a manger because the inn was booked. There was no space in the inn. And that technically shows you that if they were a poor family, there's no way they would have gone to the inn, because to go to the inn costs money. Then the scriptures go ahead and they show us that at the birth of Jesus, 3 wise men came looking for the king that was born. Now, these 3 wise men even went to the king of the time asking that we've been told a king has been born. And they came with gifts that are fit for a king. Now, we are told that Jesus got into Jerusalem on a donkey. And during that time, a donkey is like a present-day BMW. This was a rich man that was riding on a donkey. We are told that Jesus, among his 12 disciples, he had a treasurer. Judas was a treasurer. A poor person or a poor group or a poor community doesn't need a treasurer. We also told that when Jesus was on the cross, after his crucifixion, they took away his robe. And this robe that the Roman soldiers were fighting over it, because it was such a expensive robe that it was seamless. So all these things shows us that Jesus was not poor. So your relationship, your context of Jesus will always define your concept of wealth. And most of us have been brought up, society makes us believe that poverty is something to be celebrated. Poverty is only something that you can celebrate and look up to in movies. If you've ever come from a poor family where you struggle over food, where you struggle, somebody that is sick in your family, your mother is sick, your father is sick, but you don't have money to take that parent or whoever you love to hospital, you realize that poverty is not something to be celebrated. Poverty is something to be fought with every ounce of energy that you have in your living body until you take your last breath. We are told that money don't grow on trees, and all these things are because we want to glorify poverty. Now, the fact that majority of people glorify poverty, now this becomes, it's not a good thing. It becomes a notion mentally that if you escape poverty, you become a bad person. And this is one of the things here that we need to stop moralizing poverty. Poverty is evil. Poverty is anti-God. Poverty is anti-Jesus. Poverty is anti any kind of religion. And poverty is the only thing that was created by man. There is nowhere in the scriptures where poverty was created by God, because everything that God created is abundance. His very first creation in the Garden of Eden, man has been given everything that he needs for his survival. And it shows us that God creates everything, whatever your needs are first, before he puts you in that environment. So this lack, this environment we live in where we're struggling with food, we're struggling with health, we're struggling with shelter, that is not godly. There's nothing moral about it. This is a man's creation. The other thing here is what I call strategic silence. The other thing that we need to change is what I call strategic silence. Poverty is loud. Noise chases away money. You're not going to find rich places playing loud music. If you go to Michelangelo Hotel now, the music playing in the lobby is very calm. If you go to your 5-star hotel, the music playing in the lobby is very calm. If you go to the bank, the music playing is very loud. Where there is silence, there is wealth. Go to any shebeen, the music is loud. Go to any poorer areas, it's so loud that you have no time to think. And if you can't think, if you cannot think, you cannot change your life. So where there is silence, it becomes very easy for people to read you. Because where there is silence, it's easier for you to go deep inside and focus on who you need to become in order for you to change or create an effect in the environment that you live in. Now, our society promotes noise. The poorer the area, the more licenses and certificates they give for shebeens, the more licenses and certificates they give for churches. For every street corner, one is a shebeen, the next one is a church. They play loud music, people worship loudly. There's loud music from shebeens. The taxis are playing loud music. That's strategic. It's been created entirely because what they're stealing from you is silence, because where silence is where things simmer. It's where the seeds grow. It's only in the darkness of the soil. Your mind is a soil, and your thoughts are seeds. Now, if you keep on disrupting these thoughts with all the loud noise that is happening around you, you start reacting to them rather than responding to them, because you're not yourself. They become the stimuli, and they constantly keep on stimulating you. So you have, irrespective of how bad the environment you're in, you need to learn to silence yourself. You need to learn to silence your thoughts. The other thing here is we need to abandon what we call collective rescue. Poor people, society tells poor people that change will only come if they fight for the system to change. Systems don't change because they've stopped working. Systems don't change because they're morally wrong. Systems don't change because you don't like them. Systems only change because they stop working, and when they stop working, another system comes in its place. Now, waiting for systems to become fair, the banking system to become fair, the health system to become fair, the education system to become fair, the food system to become fair. The more we wait for these things, the more dependent we become on them and the weaker we become. Rich people, they understand that as individuals, you have a lot of power to maneuver and move with speed between rigid institutions rather than waiting for them to change. As an individual, you'll find it very hard when you try to bring most of the people around you, and I'm talking this from experience, when you try to bring most of your struggling friends into a group so that you can effect change, most of them will always fight you, most of them will always resist. But if you had to make a braai at home, if you had to call them to come and watch soccer at your house, if you had to call your male friends to go to the pub, to go out to a soccer game, to go out and look for women, you'll always have a lot of people that want to come, big gatherings that are talking nothing. But when you want people to come to gatherings where a specific collective effort has to be put in to change systems they want. So we have to abandon this mindset of collective rescue. You rescue you. You the first, when God created in the very beginning, remember God created man first. God created you as an entity. He didn't create a group of people. He created one person. So you don't need a lot of people to change your life. You just need to change yourself completely. The other thing here is change of identity. Change or shading. Change or shading identity. Your identity is who you are. If your identity is hardworking, if your identity is being patient, if you consistently keep on telling yourself that I get my dignity in working hard. Remember, I'm not saying that working hard is bad. Working hard is very good for character shaping. Working hard makes you feel better, but don't get into working hard mode expecting it to make rich. Working hard makes nobody rich. There's only one thing that working hard guarantees you, and that's being tired. You'll consistently have sore feet. You'll consistently have hurting low back. You'll always struggle when it comes to paying your bills. Working hard does not change things. Working hard when you've already made money changes things. But working hard when you have no money does not guarantee you anything apart from guaranteeing you chronic fatigue. So one of the things that you have to do here is you have to be willing to change, shift, or shade that identity. You have to be willing to take a new identity. You have to be willing to discard any identity that does not serve you. Right now, if you are struggling, it's because your identity is linked to either struggling. You like talking about your lack of money. You like struggling about working hard and not being able to pay bills. You like struggling saying that my father taught me how to work hard and I'm a work harder. What is your identity around wealth? Do you believe that there are specific things that have to be done? Because unless you are willing to change that identity and get a new identity, just like a snake, shed that skin, you will struggle long term. And then number 8 here, we have what we call delayed gratification. Delayed gratification. For most of us that have come from working families, unfortunately, we've been taught only to have short-term goals. We're always working on a 30-day cycle. There's always rent to be paid, mortgage to be paid, car notes to be serviced. There's always school fees coming. We always have to buy food for the month. We have to buy electricity. We have to pay water. So everything is entirely based on a 30-day cycle. We never have time to think long term. And until we get into that space, we are going to be in trouble. And what this system is done by just giving us enough to be able to work for every 30 days, they are teaching us how to react to every crisis. Every time there's a crisis, you come up, where do I need $1,000 here to pay this? Where do I need $500 to pay this? I have no airtime. Where can I get $150? And that is where our biggest problem is. Control of your life comes where reaction ends. Now, and this is where we have to start looking and understanding. Remember, you might not be coming from a rich family, but you have to decide that a rich family will come from you. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to stand here and lie to you. It's going to be easy. But that shift alone, somebody has to be a martyr in your lineage. Somebody has to die. And that person, there's no better person to die than you. You have to die to your old self. And which means that any time where there is death, there is pain, because the pain comes from loss. You have to lose who you believe you are. You have to lose the things that are making you short-term happy and start learning to give into short-term pain in order to gain long-term pleasure. And this takes time. These are things that we have to teach ourselves, because the system is training us to consistently keep on fighting ourselves. And as we stay in this environment where consistently we're very myopic in terms of what we want, we never raise our eyes up and gaze forward to plan going forward, planning for the future. The minute we change that, our life will change. Now, one of the things that I need you to understand here is, I need you to look at this list of 8 things. What is it that you're struggling with? Whose script are you using as a manuscript? Are you working harder, investing time and energy? What phase of your wealth creation? It doesn't mean you can't use this, but it's important for you to know where you are and how do you transit. How do you increase leverage by acquiring knowledge and the technology that you have? Are you talking about, are you so proud of your poverty that it's become a badge of honor? What is, does it mean, don't mistake morality and being legal. Something can be legal but morally wrong. So have you ended up being morally rich but financially poor? Because you're more forced looking at things from a moral point of view rather than looking at how the real world works. Strategic silence. You have to learn to watch how power flows. Look at anybody that is successful in life. These are people that were quiet for a long time. Don't be like Joseph in the Bible, where he goes and he declares too soon to his family that he's going to be a king and all of them are going to bow in front of him. What happened to him? He was sold into slavery. And this is where you start learning. Most of us have become Joseph on social media. We keep on talking too much but taking very little action. Collective rescue. You, the Jesus that you've been waiting for. You have to understand what is it that needs to grow in you. What value do you need to acquire? How valuable do you need to become so that you can change your state and the world around you? What is your identity around wealth? Do you think talking about how poor your parents are and you're poorer than them, do you get your kicks from that? Do you think that makes you a better person by telling people how poor you are? And how long can you hold on? Are you willing to live the way most people can't live now so that you can be able to live the way they'll never be able to live in the next 5 years? Because delayed gratification comes from disciplining yourself right now. Creating wealth is not a sprint. It is a marathon. You can walk into money, but you'll never walk into wealth. That's why you see a lot of lotto winners. They walk into money, but 2-3 years later, they've gone back to who they were. Which of this do you resonate with? Which of this do you agree or disagree with? Write for me in the comment section. Take the questionnaire, see where you are. Hope to catch you soon, and God bless.